It doesn't matter whether you use variegated yarn or a solid colored yarn, a dark colored yarn, or a light colored yarn. This stitch just looks great with all of them. It's super easy in a beginner stitch, and we're going to show you how to do this so you can take your new hobby of crocheting to the next level and still be using the basic stitch. So let me move these out of the way. There is no stitch multiple. It is however many stitches that you would like to do. It is the size of the crochet hook for the type of yarn that you are using. I am using, for this example here, Premier Basics, and it calls for a 5.5 millimeters, so that is what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to make a chain stitch. I have no clue how many's there, but it is enough to show you what to do. So I'm going to turn my chain, and I'm going to work into the back bumps. And for the very first row, we're just going to do a regular old normal single crochet into the back bump of the chain. Okay, now you don't have to do the back bump, but the best reason to use the back bump is the beginning of your project will look the same as the end of your project. It just gives you a nice clean edge. So for row 2, you want to chain 1, and you're going to turn your work. You're going to turn it so that your yarn isn't crossing over. So since I'm right-handed and I'm holding my string with my left hand, if I turn it clockwise, that yarn stays behind and it's not going to cross over the front of my work. So we're going to work this row in the front loop only. So when you look at your stitch, you can see that there is this nice little V, and the front loop is going to be the loop that is closest to you. Okay, so the chain that you did to turn does not count as a stitch, so you work into this first stitch, just the front loop, and do a single crochet. And work into each front loop all the way across until you reach the end of your row. Front loop only. So I've reached the end of my row, and I single crocheted in the front loop of the previous row, and now I want to chain 1, turn my work so that the yarn does not cross over my work, and on this row we're going to work in the back loop. So again, you can see the little V of the stitches. The back loop is the furthest one from you. Your chain does not count as a stitch, so you work into just the back loop and do a single crochet. And do that single crochet all the way to the end of the row. Back loop only. Okay, so I've reached the end of my row. Now I want to chain 1, does not count as a stitch, turn my work so that this yarn does not cross over the front. In this row, we're repeating row 2 in the front loop only. Do a single crochet into each stitch all the way to the end of your row. Okay, so I've reached the end of my row. We want to chain 1, turn our work so that our yarn does not cross over. And now we're going to repeat row 3, which was back loop only. The chain does not count as a stitch. So we're going to do 1 single crochet in each back loop all the way to the end of the row. We have reached the end of that row, and you can start to see your pattern forming. So this is the front side of our work. The back side looks different. Okay, and we just did back loop only, so we are going to chain 1, turn our work so that our yarn does not cross over, and we are on front loop. So repeating row 2. 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. I reach the end of my row, chain 1, turn my work so we don't cross over, and we are now on back loop. So what you're doing is you're repeating rows 2 and 3 over and over again until your project is to its desired size. And row 2, well, to recap, row 1 is regular single crochet into the back bump of your chain. That's your foundation row. Row 2 is all front loop only, single crochet. Row 3 is all back loop only, single crochet. And then a chain 1 to turn, and then you just keep alternating over and over again. Okay, so this is how we look after a few more rows are worked up. It's got some nice texture to it. Makes a pretty little design there. And this is how the back looks. So it's easy to tell front from back if you were making something that was piecework. So just a personal preference of mine, I think it looks best if you end your project where it's a back loop only row. So a row 3 back loop only. So let's compare these again. We've got our variegated, our dark color, and our light color. And the stitch looks great regardless whether it's variegated yarn, a dark, or a light. For more tips and tricks and great projects, if you click on this link right over here in this corner, it will take you directly there.